Deadly Friend has just been released on special edition Blu-ray from Scream Factory. Now this one has always been a childhood favorite of mine.
From Wes Craven, the director of Nightmare on Elm Street, comes Deadly Friend, rated R. Starts Friday, October 10th.
I can't remember the first time I saw this one, but I do remember renting it as a kid and watching it with my sister and her friend. Now my sister's friend got so scared she actually started hyperventilating. We had to shut the movie off and ended up watching Beethoven or something. Needless to say, my sister never invited her over to spend the night again. Deadly Friend was a very troubled production and was actually kinda disowned by director Wes Craven. So is it worth checking out? Yes. Yes it is. Deadly Friend is about a boy genius who moves to a new town with his mom and a robot that he created. Now the robot, named BB, is about on par with Johnny Five from the Short Circuit movies, and definitely not as cool as Paulie's birthday robot from Rocky IV.
Happy birthday, Paulie.
What's with the 80s and robots anyway? So Paul is a robotic genius who's attending the local university. He befriends the girl next door, Sam, and a romance eventually blossoms between the young teens. Unfortunately, Sam's father is an abusive drunk. He looks at a bottle of booze the same way I look at a slice of pizza. Director Wes Craven's themes of the broken family and the hidden evils of suburbia are well represented here, and Sam is eventually killed by her father. But that's not the end of the story, as Paul implants BB's robotic microchip brain into Sam's brain, so she comes back to life and enacts revenge on those that wronged her and her friends. As I mentioned earlier, this film had a very troubled production history. What began as a PG-rated supernatural sci-fi love story was turned into, by the studio, a horror slasher movie. Most of the character stuff was cut out, and the studio had Craven add in new death scenes and nightmare sequences. And yet, it all still works. Really well, actually. The characters are very likable, and the romance between Paul and Sam is actually kinda sweet. You really do care for these characters. But it's not all teen romance here. The horror stuff is really well done, and I don't want to spoil everything, but I of course have to show the iconic basketball scene. Now tell me that's not the coolest thing you've ever seen in your life. But look, this movie is a ton of fun. It's pure 80s cheese, complete with a cool robot, teen angst, and over-the-top gore. I totally understand Wes Craven being disappointed with the finished product, since there was just so much studio interference on this one. But honestly, the movie is nothing to be ashamed of. Craven's direction is excellent, the musical score is great, and the cast is fantastic, with nice chemistry especially between the two leads. Some criticism that's been leveled against the film is that it feels like a hodgepodge and has conflicting tones. But I didn't really see that at all. Everything honestly worked for me. Would the movie have been better without all the studio interference? I can't really say. But one thing is certain. If the studio hadn't requested that Craven add in more horror elements, we never would have gotten this iconic scene. So yeah, this movie's awesome. I loved it as a kid, and I love it now. Scream Factory has struck a new 2K scan from the inner positive. The results are excellent, with the vibrant colors leaping off the screen. Oh, and like the previous DVD release, this version is completely uncut. So we get to see the basketball death and all the violent scenes in all of their extended, uncut glory. We get a nice slipcover with awesome new cover art. Reversible art is included as well. Scream has included a nice collection of special features. We've got 5 new interviews here. One with actress Kristy Swanson, which runs 9.5 minutes, writer Bruce Joel Rubin, which runs just over 8 minutes, effects guy Lance Anderson, which runs 5 minutes, and composer Charles Bernstein, which runs 8.5 minutes. The interviews are great and talk about the studio interference and what it was like working with Wes Craven. Kristy Swanson in particular gets very emotional during her interview when she's talking about Wes Craven, and it's very clear that he was not only a great director, but also a kind and decent man. We also get a collection of trailers and TV spots. I would have loved to get a commentary track on this and some interviews with Wes Craven himself, but that of course isn't possible now since he's passed away. Deadly Friend is a fantastic movie. I really do feel it's one of Wes Craven's most underrated films. Everything works here and it's just so much fun. Scream Factory's given us a solid release with a nice collection of special features and fantastic picture quality. So yes, this one is absolutely worth owning. And I just want to conclude by saying how much I admire Wes Craven. He was one of my favorite directors of all time, and I gotta say, I still really miss him.